So, looks like we are live. That's great. I'm going to get started in just a few moments here. Just waiting till a few more people come in. I will respond to some comments, but I also need to open up. Let's open up a Google form here. 10 seconds. Okay. Need to open another tab here and go like that. Okay, so welcome everyone to the stream for the week. I hope you're having a good day. It's very cold here in Toronto. I need to pull up some news items here because I had some news items saved. I see some people in the chat. Hey everyone. Someone's mentioning Brightline and how they're doing the expansion to Orlando so cheap. I think, it's mainly because a lot of it was, pre-built. Right-of-ways were set aside. It's being built next to a highway, at least between Fort Lauderdale and Miami for the most part. Between Fort Lauderdale and Orlando for the most part. The airport in Orlando has a ghost station already there, sitting there that's not being used. So, setting aside right-of-way and infrastructure is a really good approach, right? Like a lot of cities have done stuff like that, and that's allowed them to build transit cheaper, and the same thing, is the case for intercity transit. So let's see. Okay, we've got a bunch of people on now. So I'm going to get into news in a few minutes, but I'll respond to a few more chats here. Someone says, what's going on today? Well, been working on YouTube videos, of course. What else have I been doing? I slept in quite a bit this morning because I did not sleep much the last couple days. Been busy with lots of I do a lot of research every week. Like I go through a ton of forums, a ton of news articles, etc. And so I'm just kind of constantly doing that. And in the past few months, I've basically just had no free time. Like I spend all my time doing something. My days are completely full. So it's kind of it's weird. I've never experienced that before, but it's just kind of prioritizing different things against one another. And doing lots of research and reading, etc. I don't know what the news actually about the revised Tram project is in Quebec City. The last I had heard about it was that they were kind of pushing for an analysis of a REM-style solution because they, I think there's been obviously pressure to move in that direction. Well, okay, so the next question is opinion on the whole Scarborough RT situation. And the truth about the Scarborough RT is that if it wasn't the case that we have this kind of desire to remove it, or at least there's this political desire to, because politicians, I guess, they don't really ride transit much. So, well, most politicians do not ride transit much. And there's this perspective that it's just loud and kind of old. And because you hear news articles saying that it's old and bad, the politicians, I guess, probably assume that it's just not that good and that it should be removed. And if you try to claim that it could be replaced, they, come up with fake reasons as to why it couldn't be. Obviously, if the question was they don't have the same signaling, like maybe the SkyTrain signaling is a little more sophisticated, well, you could replace the signaling. Surely that's cheaper than, building a new line, or the silly LRT option. The LRT replacement option it gets my goat every time because, so what you're saying is let's spend a ton of money to actually make the line worse, right? Because right now the line has high platforms, and as I've discussed in many videos, high platforms mean flat floors in your trains, which means they're typically better, right? So you want to get rid of the high platforms so you can use worse trains. You want to put in overhead wire, which isn't objectively worse or better, but it's going to cost a bunch for no real reason. It delivers power to the trains. You have to modify the stations to deal with the low floor boarding. You're going to have pedestrian crossings unless you're going to make the stations accessible. So it's basically just, the Scarborough RT could be fixed, but in Toronto, we have this deep desire to either push like a subway ideology or to push an LRT ideology. And if you're a sensible person, you live in the real world, you're not allowed to have an opinion on that conversation. So that's my take. I'm a little salty about it all, if I'm honest. But yeah, that's kind of how things are. So what I want to do before I get into my first kind of news item of the day is I'm going to send the link to the chat. If you have any unique transit memorabilia, or you have a unique ticket or fare cards especially, then please consider sending me one. You can submit a kind of an item to this form, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm always interested in getting transit maps, cards, etc. from around the world, and since I know I have a lot of viewers in Europe, Asia, and other parts of the world, it's great to have the opportunity to get some fare cards from you folks. And let's see if I can pin this message. So I've just pinned it. So now people can see the link. I'm going to answer one more question, and then I'm going to get into my news items. The next question is, why do you think subways in North America are so slow to build compared to Asia, right? And there's a lot of reasons. Like, it's not a very easy question to answer, but some of the main ones are the size of, we build bigger than we need to in a lot of cases. Like, if you look at a lot of Asian cities that are adding rapid transit, they do a lot more like SkyTrain size systems. Like, they call them MRTs a lot of the time. I'm not saying that all lines are like that, but in general, there's a strong trend towards smaller trains and automation for new lines. Of course, again, this is not the only thing we have, but you see more of that, and so that obviously contributes. And then it's an experience thing and a better practices thing, because these cities build more metro systems. They naturally get better at doing so. So yeah, it's that, I think, primarily. I really need to see what I can do here. Okay. So let's get into the news items. So the big news item of the day, or of the week, was Bombardier now being part of Alstom. I was very sad about this, and so I made a video. I think I am still pretty sad about that. I should unpin this and I should repost it. Yeah, I'm sad about it. I think that we could have kept Bombardier. I don't think that it's like the case that Bombardier didn't need to get a lot of reforms done. But it's crazy. It's crazy to suggest that that we couldn't have, and Bombardier has created a lot of good products, and globally, and to suggest that they're just a bad company, it's part of the Canadian trend of punching down and of kind of hating on our own companies. I mean, to be fair, Canada has a lot of problems in our business culture. Like, we have a lot of monopolies and oligopolies, and that's obviously a huge issue. But I just think Bombardier, we could have done more and to help reform it and to drive them in the right direction, and we didn't, and so now we've lost that company. And Alstom is not going to care as much about manufacturing in Canada. If we're building products for other countries, they're definitely not going to. Less management will be in Canada, less engineering will be in Canada. It's just we've shipped off a ton of jobs and expertise, and if we're honest about it, yes, we own a big chunk of Alstom, which is a more successful company, but it's kind of, we could have had both. We could have had a successful company, and we could have had it, in Canadian hands. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what the people think, but I'm going to respond to a few more comments here. Someone's mentioning they have a collection of transit cards, but they don't have them with them. That's too bad. I have mine with me because I've been home for months. What guerrilla actions can I take to improve transit in my area? I don't know if I think of too many guerrilla actions you could take. I think just get involved in the public process, follow your politicians on Twitter and follow transit agencies on Twitter and comment And if you think something's bad, say so. And I think that that's one of the best ways people can have an impact, because if people agree with you, they will like and retweet and share. And if people disagree, they'll tell you. And so it's a great way of both developing your personal opinions and kind of your ability to explain what you think and your feelings and stuff. And it's also a good way to potentially get some positive action going on. If you're talking about light rail working on narrow streets, right? Like a lot of times when you have narrow streets, you're in a dense area. So I don't know that light rail is necessarily the most appropriate transit mode. If you need to, then yeah, I think it should be a dedicated corridor. I really don't like mixed traffic operations when they can be avoided, and I think most of the time they can be. So I think that generally, if you have light rail, it should be in a dense place on a dedicated corridor. What's your opinion of high-floor LRT systems such as LA Metro's Blue Line, Expo Line, Gold Line with their more trunk-esque infrastructure? I mean, I think that I think that it's kind of a question of, do they need to be light rail? If it's super long, like the Gold Line, you should have chosen a mode that was capable of higher top speeds, because if you have higher top speeds, then you can, cross the line more quickly. I guess the high-floor trains are not terrible. They're fine, but I think that like a lot of the times, if you're building a high-floor LRT, you could probably just build regional rail with high floors, and I think that would be better. So I'm just scrolling again. Okay. Thoughts on using bi-mode multiple units on Go RER seems to be the plan for Lakeshore. I think that bi-mode multiple units are neat, but first of all, if it's a bi-mode multiple units, not double-decker, right? We don't really have diesel multiple units that are double-decker that are good. So you lose the double-decker nature, which, that's probably a good idea. But if you're running a commuter service, which you are on the diesel parts of the line, and you're also, not running super high frequencies, higher capacity might be a bit more of a consideration. So I think that bi-mode multiple units actually not necessarily the most important thing. I think there's kind of one main case where it would make sense, which is Kitchener Line, because you might want to operate a semi-frequent service in the CN part of the corridor, and that I think the deal would be you couldn't put up electrical lines because CN doesn't want electrical lines, and so that might be the one place that it kind of makes sense. Someone's talking about their thoughts on the LRT on the street thing. I mean, I don't necessarily think that they should just be metro systems, but I think maybe in some cases they probably could be. Like if you look at Calgary's Northwest Line, the red line, I think it could be a metro. I think it could get away with that for sure. And I mean, I guess there's not a huge difference. It's grade separated, right? But metro trains would be better because they're fully, they can be fully articulated. To be clear, so can the Calgary and probably LA, etc. LRT trains, but they're not fully articulated. And we have this problem in North America with kind of our ability to be creative, our ability to see something done somewhere else and just do it. And so while in Germany they have done some fully articulated LRV trains with multiple high floor LRT cars, I don't think we'll do it in North America because we would kind of just I feel like we would struggle to do it. We would just say we can't do it, or we don't want to do it, or something along these lines. We would say we have to build a new line. So I think one of our problems in North America is just generally being able to and open to seeing how it's done in other places and then just replicating that. What do you think of cities that use light rail as a way of increasing capacity but don't create an interconnected network out of it? Paris with a bunch of disconnected lines. Yeah, it's okay. I think in Paris it probably makes more sense than a lot of places in North America, because at least the land use in Paris kind of, even in more suburban areas, it makes more sense for light rail. There's probably higher density. It's a bit more like main streets and stuff, and I think that it's okay. But I think that if you're going to build an LRT network, not that you should interconnect it to get the benefits of the network effect, being able to share some vehicles and being able to do some more interesting interlining and stuff. Oh my goodness, this is so annoying. And so if you're not able to do that, I'm not sure the benefit is all there. But at least in Europe, you can build an LRT, quote unquote, really inexpensively, which is not true in North America. And so I think that, it's hard for me to say it's a terrible idea. I do maybe think that there could be better ways of spending money, but I think Paris's approach is pretty good. One news item I wanted to cover today was less of a news item and more of a public service announcement for my channel. I got a lot of comments on my recent video on air rail links, which was, I'm pretty sure, let me check. I think it was explicit even in the title that it was about express air rail links. Let's take a look. Where is it here? Okay, it wasn't necessarily explicit in the title, but definitely in the content of the video that it was about express air rail links. And a lot of people were commenting that, like, I don't know, Chicago has an air rail link, or Atlanta has an air rail link. And it's like, yes, some of these cities do have air rail links. I cannot mention every city in North America with an air rail link, right? You'd go Seattle, Portland, LA, San Francisco. San Diego doesn't, I don't think. Salt Lake City, Denver, Dallas. I don't think Houston has one. The Canadian cities. There's way too many cities for me to conceivably be able to mention every single city, right? So because I don't mention something does not mean I do not think that that's an air rail link that qualifies. The point of the video was really about express air rail links, and I do agree that some cities, like maybe Atlanta, it's less reasonable because, again, I mentioned how it makes sense when you have an existing right-of-way that you can use, like a freight rail or ideally a passenger rail line, to serve the airport. And if your link is already really fast, then yeah, you probably don't need one. Like in Toronto's case, we have Billy Bishop Airport, which is essentially downtown. It's accessible by the streetcar network, and yeah, it doesn't make sense to have an express air rail link to an airport that is already so close to downtown. But I think the main priority is for the cities with airports that are quite far from downtown, like Denver and Toronto. Express air rail links are a really good solution for accessing the airport. So that's what I was going for that video. Nice PC behind you. Yeah, so I built this PC. My hair is crazy. What can I say? I haven't been out, haven't got my hair cut in months. We'll see what happens when I can. I built this PC. It's a mini ITX. Yeah, it was a nightmare to build, but it's pretty cool, I think. We edit most of the videos on it. I like building PCs. I'm quite a tech enthusiast. Bombardier, like many Canadian companies, is excellent at what they do, but too small for long-term survival in the global market. I mean, Bombardier is not small, though. As per their video, they make like a quarter of the regional trains in Europe, right? And if you look at metro systems, it's shocking how many metro trains Bombardier built, right? And so, while I agree that they weren't gigantic, I mean, in North America, how many trains does Siemens make? At least for metro systems, I don't know if I can... Do they even make any? Someone will quickly correct me if I'm wrong, but... Yeah, I don't know that Siemens makes a single metro train in North America. And Alstom? I mean, I guess Alstom in New York. But yeah, Bombardier is big, especially in North America. So not that North America is obviously kind of sadly is a small market for transit and rail vehicles, but no, it's definitely, it's the case. Okay. The chat is a bit annoying. When I scroll, sometimes it just jumps. So sorry. Yeah. Reply to your elected, your elected officials. That's their job, is to talk to and represent constituents. So if you have an issue with something they're promoting regarding transit, tell them, or call them, or tweet at them. Right, all options. Yeah, I mean, with any kind of, that's the nice thing about automation, right? And I think that, what can you say? That the great thing about automation in North America is it kind of removes the economic, like it removes the biggest economic factor in increasing service, which is paying for more operators. And doing that allows you to run frequency, and frequency drives ridership. And then, frankly, when you have a lot of ridership, then you should start investing in your bus network. And then when you do that, you'll have to hire more operators anyways, because we're not automating buses anytime soon. So I think it's kind of it's a great solution no matter what. And I think that it's the fact that you have to argue for automated light metro, or automated metro, as I kind of prefer to call it, it's because it's the only system that can really be automated. You need the grade separation, right? So, yeah, the UK has had a lot of manufacturing struggles, but the UK actually has some high-tech manufacturing, which I find is quite impressive. What situations do you think LRT is appropriate? Where you really need the flexibility, or where you're actually legitimately a small community that's not growing that much, that probably won't grow that much. Waterloo region. Not that I don't think Waterloo region will grow. I just don't think it's ever going to be a major Toronto-sized city, right? And that's okay. There's lots of cities that have kind of like other cities or kind of communities in their orbit that are quite specialized economically, like in aerospace or IT or things like that. And I think it's okay, like a small community where something like light rail can actually serve it quite well, and it's a well-used service, that it makes sense. My lips are super dry. It is dry in Toronto. So Manchester is proposing to replace heavy rail lines with light rail tram trains. I hope that's not the same as like what Metrolink has. I don't know. I think you're moving backwards if you're doing that. So that's disappointing to hear. Bimode with diesel would be pretty bad. I don't know it's necessarily that bad. I know, again, I don't like to pick on certain countries, but like the UK has a bunch of bimodes with diesel. To be fair, I haven't heard great things about the Hitachi whatever class. I forget the name. The ones that Virgin called the Azuma. Is it the IET? I think Intercity Express train. It might be the IET. But those have dual mode and they look good. I've heard not great things about the comfort and etc. inside, but it's definitely an option. I believe they're also looking into battery by mode with those, which is definitely a better option. Like, yeah, let's move away from diesel if we can do that. Let me talk about another news item. Okay, so this was one so I'm doing a video regarding highways. I'm not for highways. I'm generally quite against them, but there's this kind of belief, I think, that people have that we're building highways in North America, and it's actually not really true. We're not building that many highways. If you look it up, there's only a few like major highway projects. I guess in Toronto we might unfortunately have a highway, and but if you look broadly, right, like in Canada, we have Calgary was finishing its ring road. They're still doing it, but I mean, outside of that, I don't expect them to really do any new highway. There might be a few expansions where they add lanes and stuff. I know that BC and Alberta want to be connected by a 4-lane road, which frankly, it's kind of reasonable. I think 4 lanes between major cities is okay because, you can have increased safety. You can have passing, which is important. But we're not building that many, greenfield highways. In Texas, there are maybe a few, and there's a few scattered around, but on a broad sense, we're not building a ton of highways in North America, and that's good. So where we should invest in transit, where we should invest is in transit and in rail transport. So, and buses as well, obviously, where they make sense. I hear the Pearson Transit Hub is kind of on its last legs. Do you know how likely it is that COVID has... So the thing is, of course COVID changed air travel patterns, right? Like, for me, I'd love to travel, but I cannot conceive of traveling right now. I know some people who don't seem to care about their fellow man are traveling for pleasure reasons and stuff, but broadly speaking, the reason that travel has changed is because no one's traveling because we're supposed to stay home. And so Yeah, like of course it's changed for now. I think it is on its last. They're not going to build a huge airport transit center when airports are dead, but I think in 5 years it can still happen. So I'm not that worried. Let me see. What's the hot news? Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, Bombardier. So why do you think Canada is so behind other countries in electrifying railways? What about Quebec City Windsor corridor? Well, because we share with freight, and the freight companies don't want electrification, and that kind of makes sense, right? Like if you have to have an electrified network, and you're a really successful operator, you want to have all your network be electrified so you don't have to change locos or use dual modes or whatever. So there's that. There's the fact that they don't really want to operate under high voltage lines, which, I mean, other countries do it safely, but if you don't, you might think that is a pretty negative thing. But again, yeah, if you don't own the tracks, it's hard to build it. So in a sense, if you're building a brand new railway like some less developed countries are, then it makes a little more sense because you don't have this kind of traditional conservative attitude towards it, and you're just like, well, yeah, obviously we should electrify. So let's continue. Yes, I've heard about the issues with REM and the PE Trudeau Airport, the connection. They've lost money, so they can't cover the cost. I mean, I believe the government will pay for it, but they should definitely it should be a loan. It should not be the government paying, because the airport will turn around when flights get back to normal. Do you think the Tribo RX proposal in New York City to link the outer boroughs is feasible? If that's the one to transform that rail corridor into kind of like a LIRR or subway style operation, then yes, it's definitely feasible. But the question is will you guys bite the bullet, right? New York spends an insane amount of money on transit. Now, fortunately, if it's above ground, it can cost a lot less because you don't have to pay these crazy costs. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely feasible. A lot of projects are feasible, but the huge barrier is whether there is political willpower to complete them, right? So I think that's where you kind of have to note. I mean, okay, so someone's mentioning that in the US, yes, exactly, freight companies own most of the rails. Now, there's no reason for them wanting electrification. I don't really agree, right? Electrification is great. It allows you to have more powerful locomotives, right? So that could mean lower fuel cost, for one, like diesel and other fossil fuels will only become more expensive. There's the environmental implication, and people do not want to do business with companies that are doing a ton of damage to the environment. And, rail services are not the worst, right? Air services are terrible for emissions, but as things move to electrification broadly, right? The freight railways will eventually, it'll definitely be an environmental argument. And I don't think battery makes a ton of sense for freight rail, right? Because you need a ton of power and energy density. And so I think, and because you have a corridor, right? The trains are not traveling, it's not a car where you can go anywhere. So I think that electrification via wire in most places makes a ton of sense. Now, if you're in like tunnels and stuff, well, then maybe you have to have batteries. But no, it's definitely something that I think they would be attracted to, especially in like steep areas and lines with a lot of grades, right? Electric locos can help with that. So yes. Let's see, there was another news item I wanted to mention. It's less of a news item and more of a topic I'm quite interested in lately, and I thought would be worth bringing up, and that's Switzerland. It's really cool to see a lot of things Switzerland does with their rail networks. With their timetabling system and their as fast as necessary model. I think it would be quite appropriate for North America in a lot of ways because, well, we do have long distances that would make high speeds a little more attractive than in Switzerland because Switzerland is tiny. I do think that the model of building track and infrastructure just as what you need is really important in North America because we have so much to do, so much to build, and overbuilding is something that we have a lot of trouble with. So I think It's definitely something I want to discuss on the channel, and something I'm thinking about a lot is how to be a bit more like the Swiss in that aspect. Oh my goodness, need to get a humidifier. Um, I want the West Coast Express extended to Chilliwack electrified, given the S-Bahn treatment. Yeah, I mean it definitely should be, but it's an issue of political willpower, right? The issue with extending the West Coast Express, as much as I would like to see it happen as well, is that the inner portions are served by SkyTrain, and trips are faster that way to much of the region, because Vancouver is quite polycentric. I mean, we do have a big downtown office district, but there's a lot of offices in Burnaby and in South Van and other areas, Broadway corridor, that aren't accessible via the West Coast Express. And so when you're talking about only something that serves downtown, it becomes harder to justify. And it's even harder to justify because the population of like Chilliwack and Abbotsford is pretty tiny. So I agree, but I think that with North American cost to do a lot of these projects, it makes it less attractive than it would appear to you or me. I just want to do another mention. So if you haven't already, because we're constantly gaining subscribers, and so this might be one of the first videos you watch from me, please go follow me on Twitter at rmtransit, on Instagram at rmtransit as well, and join the community Discord. It's linked on the channel and in pretty much every video. We talk about a ton of these issues on the Discord, and there's kind of channels for all different geographies. And I think it's just a really good place to learn about transit, discuss different issues, and there's a lot of people who are quite funny on there, so it's great. I also want to mention the pinned message. So if you have a cool transit card or a transit map and you'd be interested in sending it to us, and we'll feature it on the live stream, which we do every 2 weeks, then please do send us your transit cards or your transit maps. It's awesome to have like a global collection, and it kind of allows us to take advantage of our global audience to get some really cool stuff. And I mean, I think it's cool to show people like fare card designs and map designs from around the world, and that's a great way to do it. Yeah, so the REM went from 6.3 to 8 billion, but that's because a lot of stuff was added into the scope, right? Like new stations, new interchanges and stuff, which should have been built. But yeah, 8 billion 460 kilometers is quite good, but it is not amazing in the international context, right? So it's kind of crazy that we think it's amazing in North America, but internationally it's kind of like, okay, it's not actually that much better than the median. Let's see. You can post your tickets on Discord. There was a transit memorabilia channel. Yeah. I don't know how good Cleveland's air rail link is. I mean, let's look. I hope it's good because I'm about to look at it. It's the red line, I believe, right? Yeah, I don't know. Cleveland has a kind of, I feel like, a poor reputation. Let's see. Yeah, so 40 minutes on the train is not great, but Cleveland is not exactly an alpha world city, so I think that, yeah, no, it's good. Could be better, though. And the frequency, every 20 minutes on weekdays, every 30 to 60 on weekends is not great, right? So it's okay, but not amazing at all. Oh my goodness. Chat is jumping around again. Let's see. Oh my goodness, lots of messages. Okay, I'm gonna scroll down. I can't answer every question, so I will try my best to answer some of them because there is a lot. Tram trains, I think it's something, yeah, that would make sense in North America. I think that maybe you could argue St. Louis Metrolink is a bit like that, but usually tram trains are low floor. But yeah, I know in some places where you can go to a rural place, that might make sense, yeah, for a tram train. Yeah, the Canada line is one of those rail links that doesn't really need to be express because it's so fast, even with intermediate stops. Yeah, so I guess R160B, but outside of New York, can you name metro trains from companies? Like your number of metro train suppliers is not that high. Go get a haircut. I can't go get a haircut because stuff is locked down in Toronto. Um, yeah, I think automated rail is taking over as the standard for metro. If you look at new systems, they are often automated, right? Like look at Sydney Metro, right? They went to automated, and that's how they're going to build out. Which U.S. city do you see getting a new metro system? Maybe one in Texas or the kind of western U.S. that isn't California, because they're all those cities are growing a ton. Sunbelt, I'm not super optimistic about it, but that would be where I'd expect, because those are the places that are actually spending a decent amount on transit, even if they're not building amazing transit themselves. Ontario Line might use 80-meter four-car trains. Well, that is the plan, right? If you look at the latest releases on that, I think it's fine if they decide that the capacity is sufficient. People need to realize that the Ontario line does not need to completely empty the Yonge line, and it can't, because some people will always take the Yonge line because they live close to it or because it's convenient. So the Ontario line doesn't need to do that. It just needs to take a lot of people off it. So if the Ontario line, cuts the number of riders by 30% on the Yonge line, which I think even with 4-car 80-meter trains, it easily could because of how many people are transferring from on Eglinton and Bloor, then there you go. You've done your job, and 30% of the Yonge line's capacity, is like it's like a Eglinton Crosstown size line worth of capacity north-south that you got, right? So you served all those new people, but then you also cleared out enough capacity for a ton more passengers. What's your favorite bus type? I like the ones from New Flyer. I think they look really nice. If that's what you're asking, like what company. I actually like Nova Bus as well. I think in North America, or at least our Canadian-made buses, though I know New Flyer and Nova Bus make their U.S. buses in the U.S., I think they all look really good, actually. Not as good as European buses, often, but they look good. How much more LRT can we get in Waterloo? I think that Waterloo can do like a 1-by-1 grid, like one line all the way down to Cambridge and then one east-west line. I think that makes a lot of sense. Maybe like a DMU line. Yeah, they can order Kisses to run RER and Flirt battery electric multiple units for Up Express, but why would you? Because Up Express is actually planned to be electrified, right? So I think that would be Kisses as well. I guess while we're talking about automation, do you think we'll see automated trams or automated buses in the next 10 years? No, because I think with automation, you'll see automated cars first, because, cars are a bigger market than buses. And because, it's okay when you're just putting you're putting your own life and honestly a lot of other people's lives. But I just think automated cars, you always see new innovations in cars first, right? Like, okay, I shouldn't say always, but you see a lot more innovation, I would say, in the car space because you have more competing brands, you have a lot more being purchased, etc. So I think we'll see automation in cars first, and also because they have huge R&D budgets that these bus companies just do not have, right? And you need a pretty big R&D budget to do self-driving, at least early on, before companies start white labeling their systems. So 10 years maybe, probably more like 15 to 20. Well, my opinion on New Flyer taking over the American bus market is cool. Their buses are good, and I like it. They're a Canadian company, right? So I'm supportive. Of course, I'm going to support my local Canadian companies, especially when they make good products, right? So someone is sending me a message on Discord. If you want to send any transit cards or maps in, please use the link that is pinned in the chat. That's funny. Do you think North America should buy second-hand Pacers? Oh my goodness, no. Why? The Pacers are terrible already in the UK. Why would we want terrible trains from the UK in Canada and the US and Mexico as well? I think they are being scrapped, but they're actually not being scrapped yet. You're saying you could put a Flirt diesel in a Kiss. I don't agree, right? The problem is that with a two-level train, you have a lot less room to fit stuff in. So I would say if it was very feasible to do a diesel bi-level, that's actually good, because I think there's a Colorado Railcar diesel multiple unit diesel bi-level. I think if there was a good one that was easily possible, the engineering would have been done. We would have it already. So I don't think it can be done very easily. Yeah, I agree. Instead of building the 413 highway in Toronto, the 407 should be made cheaper to use, because, let's be honest, it's not a reasonable price right now for people to use. Yeah, in cities, highways don't make a ton of sense, right? They get congested super fast, and they're primarily supposed to play the role of getting people quickly around, which transit does better anyways. So between cities is where they make sense, because there is trucks need to use them, and we have a lot of truck transport, and because people can travel between cities on them quickly. But in urban areas, they don't make a ton of sense, and that's why you don't really see significant new urban area freeways. Again, you might see some in Texas, but they're being opposed. So yeah, you don't see a ton. Yeah, and they usually are tolled, which is good. I think all freeways should probably be tolled, because you have this. There's an externality that you're creating, right? You're hurting the planet, you're hurting communities, you're polluting the air, at least until cars are widely electrified. You're creating noise pollution. You're taking up a ton of valuable real estate. So yeah, I think they should be tolled generally. I mean, I don't really know if I like the Arbutus LRT plan. I almost feel like it should be a SkyTrain, right? Like, we're probably going to pay a ton to do it as LRT, and we need the north-south capacity. So doing it as SkyTrain might make more sense, especially because there's a lot of development that's going in around South Falls Creek that the Arbutus SkyTrain could support, right? So I think that that actually makes a lot of sense. Also, if we're getting into Fantasyland a bit, which I feel comfortable doing only for Vancouver, because I did grow up there and spend 15, 20 years of my life there. My personal kind of idea is, you got the Millennium Line, goes across, have a branch. So it's kind of a reverse branch, but it's not as bad, because I think the kind of center point of the line is the Canada Line connection. So I think you can have branches on both sides, and it's reasonable. Have a branch of the Millennium Line that goes to the downtown core, so that some passengers who would transfer to the Canada Line can remain on the Millennium Line. And I think before Arbutus, it would turn north, and you kind of hit the south end of the Burrard Bridge, and then go into downtown that way. You would take a lot of traffic off the Canada Line north-south, at least from the Millennium Line. If you have good connections through South, Burrard Bridge South and the downtown core, you could pull some riders off of the Canada Line at the same place. You would have more capacity into the downtown core, because right now we have 40,000 people per direction per hour of capacity. Not quite, but we have the capacity to generate that capacity when Canada Line, which is 15,000, and Expo Line, which is 25,000, get fully built out. And so I think with the Millennium Line option, this adds another 25,000, so it's like a additional 50% boost to the downtown capacity. But then what you could do is you could have a linear induction motor SkyTrain line that then continues south from there. So you're kind of creating another branch, and that branch runs onto the Arbutus right-of-way. And then what you could do long term is completely separate the lines, right? And you keep the track connection, because you might want to shuttle your rolling stock around. But then what you do is you're creating a brand new north-south linear induction motor SkyTrain line. And then who knows, maybe in the south that comes around, goes to Marine Drive, and then that works its way back up to Burnaby along through the Fraser Lands and stuff. So that's my fantasy SkyTrain of the future for Vancouver. I don't like fantasy maps, because I think they're a little silly. You're proposing stuff that probably won't get built, but I think that's actually kind of realistic, so that's why I'm putting it out there. Tire versus wheel metros. Well, tires, as it turns out, are wheels, so they're actually both good. Rubber tire metros themselves, I don't think that there's a clear benefit, but if you have it, like you do in Montreal or Mexico City or Santiago, keep it. Why would you remove it for, they're not designed to work without them. What's the best way to integrate long distance and corridor rail services? I think the best way is with time transfers, right? The problem in North America is our long distance services are super unreliable. As in like hours and hours late or maybe early, usually late. So having a time transfer is critical. Thoughts on HSR potential in Canada? I mean, I'm really a proponent of maybe Kitchener, Waterloo, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal. I think that's the most reasonable high-speed link. We can obviously justify it. But the fact that we can justify it means that we probably should have built it a long time ago when it was cheaper. Yeah, I think hydrogen will be an up-and-coming power source for freight rail, broadly. So yeah, it's a good option. I'm just looking at something here. Okay, let me go back down. Let's see. I've got to find the point in the chat where I was. Oh my goodness, so many messages. Oh my goodness, yeah. 10 seconds, folks. I'm gonna see if I can get myself some water. I think I might have succeeded. We'll see. My lips, so painful. If you need zero emissions, yeah, okay. So now I'm here, looking at mountain routes to see what makes sense for passenger rail. North America is the antithesis of adhering to a timetable. On freight, yes, but that's actually efficient, right? Some North American railways do actually adhere to a timetable. They're just usually rapid transit and passenger stuff. That because the kind of typology is that water, yay. I'm gonna have a drink of this. That was delicious. Anyways, as it turns out, we're pretty good at freight in North America. And I think how it turns out is that being good at freight and being good at passenger rail require different things, and so yeah, that it's reasonable. Freight just doesn't operate on a timetabled model. Oh my goodness, this hair is so annoying. Someone bring Reece water. Yes, great. I finally did get some water. Well, that's the question. Go RER or Montreal REM, and I think generally Montreal REM, maybe sadly, makes more sense. So someone is mentioning, do you think platform screen doors limits your type of rolling stock? Yeah, maybe. So you need to be smart before you install them. I think generally, if you need to change your platform screen doors because your rolling stock is that out of touch with what you need, then you probably can. Do you think Scarborough should have gotten LRT instead of a subway? No, I don't think it should really have done either, but the subway is still better than the LRT if we're being honest. I have actually been to the Czech Republic, although it was just for a short period of time driving through. On a bus. Cleveland has issues, but the air rail link is legit. Yeah, I haven't been to Cleveland. I didn't grow up in Ontario, so I haven't been to kind of the obvious nearby cities, but Interesting. Airport is the only underground station on their network. Well, that is interesting. Underground airport stations are not actually that common in North America, or even around the world. Um, Best and worst public transport you've been on? I think best would probably be Tokyo, and worst would probably be Marta is not actually that bad. I'm trying to think. Maybe the transit in Vegas was also not that bad. I think if transit is bad, you don't ride it. So it would be the systems that I haven't taken, which are usually bus systems in small towns. Red Line's frequency was better pre-COVID. Interesting. Yeah, no, I guess that's reasonable. But if it's a 40-minute travel time, that's still not amazing. Yeah, like the green movement in the UK is not really. I don't think they're a real green movement. It's more like organized NIMBYism, right? And like degrowth or whatever, which is really, I think, bad. Yeah, I don't know how you get over it. I think just kind of, continuing to make the point that transit is more environmentally friendly than car-based transportation universally, basically, and that high-speed rail is especially valuable because flights are terrible for the environment. Though, to be fair, the UK already has pretty good passenger services. XR constantly ties themselves to public transportation, totally out of touch. Not sure what you're referring to. As a right-wing person, any ideas on how to get right-wing people to see transit as good? Well, it's good for the economy, so if you care about the economy, that's important. It's convenient. It's cheaper than using a car. It's safer than using a car, which means a lot of positive economic benefits. It creates more sustainable cities economically and environmentally. Some transit can be run as a business. Yeah, no, transit's good. So to Nowhere with You, thank you for this super chat, much appreciated. And yeah, I think because of the pinned comment, I cannot see super chats as they're sent. But yeah, thank you so much for that. What do you think of a tram train line along the 407 corridor instead of a BRT? I think just do an automated light metro. Why not do a REM style thing? The 407 transitway was, I think, going to be mostly grade separated, like the Ottawa and Mississauga transitways. So why not do something like the REM that can hit really high speeds? I think that makes a lot of sense, and it kind of looks like Go ALRT. And the nice thing is, lips are getting a bit dry again, because the subway is getting extended up to Highway 7. There's so many good connections, right? You have Unionville and then line 1, both terminals, and then you work your way down and you hit other GO lines, etc. So it's great. What do you think is the best tram/light rail system in Europe? There's a lot of good ones. I'm quite partial to Amsterdam's. I've spent a lot of time using it, and I think it's quite good. It reminds me a lot of Toronto streetcar network, albeit it's better. Pink Line tramway project in Montreal. I don't like to make videos on kind of promised lines. Unless a line is being seriously planned, then I don't think it's worth discussing, because there's so many other projects to talk about, right? I think the Canadian Greens are a party that's actually growing increasingly relevant, and I think that if we move to proportional representation, which we, for better or for worse, looks like we will at some point, to some degree, then they will get a lot more seats because they get a lot more of the vote than they have in seats. I've already talked about the Scarborough RT a little earlier in the stream, so you might have to go back and watch it after. But my general opinion is just that it shouldn't be replaced, and it's silly. But if you argue with the established LRT fanatics in Toronto, it's going to take you to disaster. So that's my take on that. Have you been to China? What do you think of the metro systems? Not a ton, but they're fine. They're good, right? But they're not the world's best, right? Like they have a lot of metro systems in China, but they have a lot of problems. To be fair, they are doing some things to fix it, like introducing express lines. But for example, the express line problem is a real one. Like the systems are, some of them are very large, and yet there's not really a quick way to go from one side of the city to another. And that's because there isn't really regional rail like there is in Europe or in Japan or Korea. So that's a big problem, and I think that it might be the case that China's not great at building regional rail because you need certain skills to build regional rail that you don't for high speed rail or metros, right? There's also cases where in China the transfers are not amazing. Like, you don't see like Victoria Line or MTR style transfers in a lot of these Chinese metro systems, right? The Van Hool Viva buses were better than the Nova buses. Well, I don't know about that, right? I think the asymmetrical designs tend to not be as good as you might hope. But they're cool. Yeah, they're unusual. Someone's saying they don't like the Nova Bus LFS. I actually love the design, especially of the hybrid with the consistent roofline. I want a long-distance train with a bunch of details. That's what Vancouver needs from Abbotsford. Yeah, but that's super expensive, right? And Abbotsford does not have that many people. So if you're looking at it from a kind of business case perspective, there's a lot of SkyTrain lines that make more sense before doing something like that. While the current Montreal Transit is ranked best in Canada, I don't know that it is. I mean, I don't think there's an easy way of ranking it in Canada. I think Montreal has good transit in some ways, and it falls behind Toronto in a lot of other ways. And I think Montreal and Toronto kind of blow for blow with each other. I don't think it's clear which one is better. Make more videos on Montreal. Yeah, I mean, I don't love... So here's an aside, because I like going on to these asides. People... This is kind of Reece ranting a bit about YouTube. People have this tendency to kind of demand things. Like, I'm not saying that necessarily their intention is to demand, but when you get a comment that says, make a video on this city, or go to this city, it's really, like, weird. Like, would you tell someone to their face to just do something? Like, it's pretty rude, right? It's pretty rude to comment something like that, I think. I know it's not people's intention, but... You know, I read the comments on my videos, less than I try to read most of them, but it's just hard as you grow and you get more and more comments. But a lot of people like demand stuff, right? It takes hours for me to make videos, so just a single comment from someone who's not even polite about you should consider making a video, which when people say something like that, like I often say, yeah, like I will consider it, and I do often consider it. It's something as a YouTuber that frustrates me, so I wanted to get that out there. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Kanzuk plan. I don't think that there's much sense in having secondhand European stock making their way to North America. The standards, unfortunately, aren't the same in a lot of cases. And why would you? Like, we're developed countries. We can buy new rolling stock, and I think that we should. Opinion on robot vacuum cleaners. That is a random question. I kind of enjoy vacuuming. I find it cathartic. As long as it's with like a wireless vacuum, like some of those Dyson ones or whatever. The robot ones, I always get the perception that they don't do a very good job, right? They're going to get stuck in wires and stuff, so I don't think I would be a fan. There's a new Regina bypass, which bypasses the existing bypass. I mean, at least it's probably not that expensive, because it's probably kind of in the middle of nowhere. Sorry, Regina. Yeah, so yeah, I guess it's kind of like the Calgary Ring Road that they're building. It's just a weird way of spending your money when you're not exactly... You could invest money in better ways, I think. I think rail links to the BC ferry terminals are probably a long way off. I just don't know that there's that much argument. wouldn't the argument for tolling freeways due to pollution be more of an argument for more carbon taxes rather than tolling? No, I don't necessarily agree, because the thing is, carbon taxes tax carbon. They don't tax a lot of other things, right? They don't tax like nitrogen dioxide pollution. They don't tax waste and pollution from like tires, for example. They don't tax noise pollution. They don't tax the physical impact of the car using the road that wears it down, that requires, money to be spent to maintain it. So, no, I think they're separate. The carbon tax, the carbon part of the cost of using a car is actually not that big of a percentage of the total cost of a car on kind of like the society if we're doing everything with tax dollars. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to rip out the SRT, just do the subway in the SRT corridor, right? But what can I say? So being from the south and spending time up in the north, you can see the massive divide in infrastructure, and they're trying to improve the north, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, I think the UK is kind of a weird place, right? Like, you guys do have one really good rapid transit rail system, and then you don't really have another, right? And that's weird, because in Canada we have a bunch of rapid transit systems, and I think I've kind of looked into it, and I think we wouldn't be at London levels, but if you were to like concentrate all of our true rapid transit into one city, we would be like pretty globally competitive. And so it's kind of weird, like we've distributed it among a lot of cities. That's not uncommon, but in the UK it's just not that way. So it's interesting. Like, again, we have 4 metro systems in Canada. The UK has, well, to be fair, the UK has 3, right? The Tyne and Wear, Glasgow subway, and London Underground. So, yeah, it's weird. The way the UK set up is weird. Ohio is proposing an HSR line that will connect Cleveland, Cincinnati, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Indianapolis. I may have heard about it, but I don't think it's... yeah, I mean, cool. If it gets built, great, but there's a lot of proposals, right? So you need to see action. Opinion on DART in Dallas and Trinity Metro in Fort Worth. Well, Trinity Metro, old trains, not super frequent. It's okay. Could be better. I guess for Texas, it's probably pretty good. DART is okay. Probably should be regional rail, though. Thoughts on Americans versus Canadians' public opinions of buses? I think they're less looked down on in Canada, but they still are looked down on. But if you provide a great service, then it's kind of like, well, okay, you can look down on me. It's convenient and cheap. So, I mean, that's kind of my opinion in Toronto, right? Like, I love using the buses here because they're great. So where are you going to build a portal for using line 2 in the SRT corridor? So you could do a turn, right? It's going to be a much shorter tunnel than would be required for the Scarborough subway as it's designed. The main justification being that you could build it way cheaper than the Scarborough subway. Another option that you could do, right, is you could shift the Kennedy station to a different alignment and then build the new system. And then overnight one day you would just switch the train alignment, which has been suggested. Very much like that video of where there's a Japanese subway system or train system that drops the tracks in one night and it's kind of like level and they turn it into a ramp. Something along those lines. I think like pushing SkyTrain through Arbutus corridor neighborhoods might be a challenge. I mean, it probably would be, but I think it should happen anyways. Maybe some tunneling would have to be used. It would probably have to be used in the northern areas, but I think that you live in a central area of a large North American city that's trying to invest in transit. Sorry, you're gonna have to deal with the transit. Yeah, crayoning some trains is fun, right? Like, I can agree with that, but it's only fun when you really know the network, and so you can kind of get like, where do I actually want to connect? You're not just looking at Google Maps and saying, there's a few high-rise blocks there, and hey, that's a big empty lot. Like, let's draw it based on Google Maps. It's when you have an idea of how the travel patterns work and stuff. I think that's the only time when you can really get the crayons out. You can't do anything about the trains sizes. Yeah, I mean, in the UK, it's going to be really hard to change the sizes of the trains. 10 seconds. Ugh. The chat's being weird again. Ugh. Go ALRT versus go RER. Why not both? Would be my response. Do you watch Road Guy Rob on YouTube? I've watched some of his videos. Yeah, they're cool. Rubber tire metros are good but expensive to maintain. Maybe. I'm not sure about the cost to maintain, to be honest. Ah, yes, water is delicious. Oh my goodness, I'm way behind on the chat. There's a big delay as well between me talking and you guys hearing it. So Chicago has a train station that is underground at O'Hare Airport. This is kind of what I'm talking about. I'm aware of that, but just because something exists does not mean that I will necessarily always mention it, right? Interesting about the Green Party. Extending the plan to the Eglinton Crosstown to Pearson, I think it's a good plan. Yeah, should definitely do it. Comments on the opposition to the fourth track on the Lakeshore East. I mean, if you live at the middle of a large city, the fourth largest in North America, you live close to a major rail corridor, which is a passenger rail corridor, which has long been a passenger rail corridor. You have good transit access. Other people might not have as good transit access. And so, as you should expect, the rail corridor may be expanded because people in the outer areas of the city should also be able to have good transit access, and which you already enjoy. Should we steamroll entire communities? No, but is adding a track to a train line so that people can ride trains instead of drive cars to the city and throughout the city, is that bad for the environment? No. Do we need to cut down a couple trees? Yes, but it's kind of, you have to look at things on a macro level, right? Like, would you rather us just build a bunch of highways to support those cars? Because you need a lot of highways to carry the same number of cars as a track of regional rail. I refuse to talk about Hyperloop. It's very silly. Yes, so 407 transitway is entirely grade separated, then why not just build a REM, right? And it would be way better. What are your favorite cars? Not interested. What is your favorite Cars movie? Not necessarily more interested, but yeah, I can't think of a car-related movie that I'm all that fond of. Oof, thoughts on something? Oh, I believe that's the new Green Leader. I don't have any thoughts. Haven't heard much. Any video planned on the TGV? I don't know if it's necessarily planned immediately, but yeah, I'm doing the High Speed Rail Explained series. France is a major country for high speed rail. You should expect a video on it eventually. Have you seen Metroliner on YouTube? Yes, but I feel like the videos are very, I don't know, you have to have personality, and when your video is just a kind of a time lapse of a system evolving, it's cool, but yeah, that Wikipedia has GIFs that do that. I don't know that there needs to be a full YouTube video for it. It's impressive, and it shows a dedication and a skill level in After Effects, which I do not possess. But I don't know. I wouldn't be excited to make videos like that myself. I would need to add a personal touch. Should SF, Boston, or Pittsburgh call their... So no system should call anything LRT. Video on why Chinese metros aren't all amazing, please. Yeah, that's a good idea. And I think that's a good idea, to be fair, because they are amazing in a lot of ways. But that's just... When there is a single opinion that kind of gets trotted out every time you talk about a topic, then yeah, it's cool to make a video that kind of says, maybe not. pay Reece to go to your city. I'm not sure what that's in response to, but I would be happy to be paid to go to people's cities. Yeah, Paris is pretty good. You're not a fan of Kanzuk because half of the UK would escape to Canada, Australia, or New Zealand. Not necessarily. I just don't know why we should be connected any more than any other countries, right? Like, why should France not be part of that? And why should Germany not be part of that, right? Like, I'm just more for generally more open borders, easier travel, probably. I mean, it's hard to discuss these issues, right? They're so complicated, but I just don't see why it has to be Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and the UK rather than any other group of countries, right? You can only demand videos from Reece if you are a majority shareholder, which I am the only majority shareholder, and there can only be one majority shareholder. Yeah, there's little economic argument behind it other than colonial nostalgia, and colonial nostalgia is a weird thing to have nostalgia about. Least used station in France, I did not see it, but I'll probably go watch that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you want to fly me to your city to do a video, I would be happy. And if you want to ask nicely, I would also be happy to consider it. I think, to be fair, Demystified, I don't want to say Demystified started because of something like that, but someone said, you should look at Auckland City Rail Link Project. I looked at Auckland City Rail Link Project and I went, huh, that's pretty good. I didn't realize Auckland had such an interesting rail network, and there you go. I made a video about Auckland, and then I went to Australia and made a bunch of videos about systems there. So you can set off a chain of events if you leave a nice comment. The UK has a few good transit systems. You say, I don't know, someone said that's a lie. I'm not sure what they're referring to. The UK might have a few good transit systems, but they are not metros. Are you familiar with the arterial BRT in Minneapolis and St. Paul? No, I don't follow BRT too closely. There's a lot of BRT systems, but I'm generally quite skeptical a lot of the time. UK has a few. Okay, secondhand rolling stock might have to be considered on new systems. Canada's public debt is at such an extreme level that we need to grow through austerity. What? No, I don't really agree. We don't have to. We can buy new rolling stock. There's a lot of things we could do to reduce our debt loads, and I don't think that buying old rolling stock that probably has a more questionable value argument behind it because it probably requires more maintenance, etc. I don't think that's one of the things that we should do to cut our debt down. Yeah, Manchester Metrolink really is not rapid transit, so I don't really disagree. I disagree with the statement that this is, and West Midlands Rail Network. None of these things are. I'm not convinced that any of these are rapid transit networks. Yeah, we should be learning from France and Spain and Korea as well, though I don't think that they were necessarily referring to Kanzuk in that context. I think Tampere, Finland. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I have been to Finland, actually, but only Helsinki. It's opening a new light rail in August. I have a new place with a guest bedroom. Send me a message if interested. It's not easy for me to send people messages, but my email is on the channel. If people have guest bedrooms and cool transit systems opening, I am more than happy to consider traveling to various places around the world to go see said transit systems. Yeah, it's super interesting, and if opportunities like that come up, I would love to. But yeah, that is one of the challenges of traveling, is it's expensive. So any kind of way that it can be made less expensive makes it more feasible. Metrolink is probably the best outside London. That's sad because Metrolink ain't all that great. And that's not really a hit necessarily on Metrolink. It's light rail, right? Like, I guess some of it runs on rail corridors, but if you look at the ridership, it's not all that amazing. The trains are not that big, so yeah, it's unfortunate. You don't do the UK justice. The rest of the UK has very good light rail systems and plans to make them much better. I would really suggest you take a look at the Manchester Metrolink. Well, previous to this message, I just kind of said why I don't think it's necessarily a great system. LRT has this. I have this concept of the map fallacy with LRT, which is that the map looks great, but the service quality, the frequency, the speed, the stations, etc., they don't really live up to what you would imagine from something that looks like better than the tube based on the map. Great. My chat jumped again, so now I have to go back up. Maybe. Interest rates are historic lows. Yeah. Record debt is basically free money for the government, and we should build as much as possible using cheap money. Yes. You don't get demand videos. Yes, indeed. That's an unsustainable system at the brink of collapse. Look at Weimar, Germany, and Venezuela. I don't really agree that that's what's going to happen without austerity. But I'm probably not going to talk too much about macroeconomics here. I don't want to talk about politics again. I think if you're wondering why anyone dislikes public transit, you should just look at their fundamental values. Yeah, UK Transit bar the metros is not that great, though, in my opinion. The only thing we should be demanding is Reece keeps on doing what he is doing. Thank you. I like the asynchronous nature of Reece answering the chat. Yes, because the messages are flying in and I take time to answer each question. Is Vancouver the best city when it comes to TOD? It's probably one of the best in North America, yeah. Does Ottawa, with its new high-rise development all around the city, can they... Okay, this is worded weirdly, but can they catch up? Maybe, but probably not. Vancouver is really doing fantastic stuff with TOD. But to be fair, it is cool to see stuff popping up across Ottawa, right near rail stations. So keep it up, Ottawa. Yeah, doing austerity and cutbacks during a depression is not a great idea. We need to rebrand HSR as Hypertrain. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but the truth about it is that just buying old trains does not necessarily make it a good benefit to cost ratio. We just need to decrease manufacturing costs, which means maybe don't build everything in expensive countries. I know it's controversial, and then look at building stuff like Spain and Korea do. What is the best way for Amtrak to cross the Appalachians? I am not sure. I'm not an Appalachians geography expert. Sorry about that. I have spent time in the area, though. What do you think about the Mid-Coast Trolley extension in San Diego, California? It's cool, but the San Diego Trolley has a lot of issues. Maybe I'll make a video about that. Yeah, the MTA needs a lot of changes, but I think that going to zone fares would cause a revolution to happen, right? So yeah, London Transit is good, but it is incredibly expensive. Though I don't know why we have to see, this is something I find weird, and maybe it's a bit of a fallacy, but why is London expensive? We should do it like China. Okay, London is not... Okay, China has a lot of problems. That's all I'm going to say. There's a lot of problems in China. Maybe we should have a better example than China, right? And so the better example is Paris or Berlin, all these places that are more reasonable than London, but still have, the good stuff, like you can finish it yourself. MTA desperately needs zones. Yeah, I mean, zones are good in some ways, I do agree, but I don't know if it necessarily is going to make sense for the MTA to move to them. Why do you think there's a lack of high-speed rail in the world? There's not. Just in North America. There's a lot of high-speed rail in the world broadly. Thoughts on HFR? It's not amazing. Why not build high-speed rail? We should be able to do it much more inexpensively. Hi, from North Carolina. What do you think of Charlotte's light rail system? It's just kind of a classic light rail system, right? Charlotte is a major... See, this is the thing that upsets me, right? Charlotte is a major city. It's not Dallas or Houston. But again, Dallas or Houston, cities that size in other countries would not build light rail. They would build metros and regional rail. Charlotte, much the same. Okay, get shot down to the bottom of the chat again, so I have to scroll back up. Yeah, I can't comment on the Rhine-Ruhr LRT system, though I think the fact that you're calling it LRT is concerning. My question, would Reece be at the Line 5 opening? I've covered the project for many years, and I've been to... I've been to most rapid transit openings in Canada in the past few years, so yeah, most likely. Metrolink is good for light rail and not a rapid transit system. It's okay for light rail. Light rail is just not that good generally. I have heard the news on REM Phase 3. Well, I don't think you can really formally call it that, but yes, the REM is going to be expanded even further. We covered this in our Future of Montreal video, so if you haven't seen that, please go see it. Lips getting dry again. I'm going to try to end the stream in about 10 minutes, but I will try to get through the rest of the messages, etc. What I do want to say is, again, pinned message. If you can send us a transit card, it would be much appreciated. Send us a transit card, a transit map, or any kind of transit memorabilia from your city. And who knows? I mean, if you send us a poster or a really good map, we might put it on the wall somewhere here and it would appear in all our videos. So maybe that's an incentive. Again, the link is in the pinned comment, and maybe I'll put one in the description. Low interest rates is not a good thing. Depends on who you are. Super Tram is a tram train? Yes. What do you think of California's high-speed rail project? It's got a lot of problems, right? It's very expensive, and it's doing a lot of stuff in ways that I wouldn't consider best practice internationally. Let's see. Austerity is bad, but so is spending money you don't have. Okay. A lot of people getting into economic arguments. Paris Metro is more expensive than the London Underground. When I'm talking about Paris Metro, I'm not necessarily actually referring to the Paris Metro. I may be referring more broadly to transport in Paris, which is cheaper. China's metros are rushed and not planned properly. Maybe, maybe not. I do think that a lot of them probably are planned pretty well, like at least in terms of as a network. Yeah, China doesn't do rail particularly cheaply, which is actually something worth noting. Like, China spends a ton of money on rail. Yeah, Spain is really good for mass transit and HSR expansion. Yeah, so if you're talking about rapid transit in France, I don't consider tramways to be rapid transit. Just gonna put that out there because they're not rapid, right? They go about as fast as cars go. The only thing cheap in the Paris Metro single tickets, which is fine if you stay in zone 1, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. To and from the airport, for example, you're looking at 20 euros each way. Yeah, but it's the RER. It's not like it's not the Piccadilly line. Does Madrid as a good bad... Sorry, I'm becoming tired and I am slurring my speech. Madrid is a good example of a lot of transit stuff. A lot of infrastructure pays itself back over many times and doesn't need so you don't need to worry about the government deficit on it. Yeah, no, definitely. Especially in North America where we've built far too little. Thoughts on the SRT? Talked about it earlier in the stream more than once at this point. In your opinion, what's the best country in public transit? I believe either France or the UK. And so I don't think it's the UK. Definitely not the UK. I don't think it's France. I think Germany, possibly, right? If we're talking about for public transit broadly, the Netherlands is really good. Singapore is pretty good. Australia is actually pretty good. There's a lot of places with pretty good transit. Yeah. Canada's not all that bad. I mean, if you consider flights to be transit, though it's not public transit, well, you will soon be able to fly to most of the major Canadian cities, get on a train, get around much of the city without ever needing to touch a car, which I think is cool. The next gen of Go RER rolling stock, hopefully something like the Stadler Kiss. So go look at Stadler Kisses around the world and you'll see some of those features like LCD screens, etc. Why are Ontario projects so much more expensive than BC projects? I don't know that they really are. We build a lot more stuff in Ontario at the moment, but BC projects in general are not necessarily much cheaper, though when they are, it's usually because they're using smaller trains. Have you seen The Tube, the 2003 YouTube TV series on Spark? Yes, I have. I've not watched all of it, though. Oh my goodness, so many messages, and I keep getting shot down. Okay. A deficit is not a bad thing, necessarily. Inflation also isn't necessarily bad. There's a difference between borrowing for capex versus operations. You need to take out a loan. Yeah, exactly. Do you think India will run into problems by sourcing their metros from so many different companies and making so many different standards? No. Look at Canada, right? We have a bajillion standards for rail transit, and we mostly get by okay. We could build more, but China subsidizes uneconomical routes. Yes. You're terrible, China. How dare you subsidize uneconomical routes? It's almost like the definition of subsidy is to pay for something which is uneconomical. Though to be fair, again, it's not necessarily uneconomical. We just don't have systems which properly represent the value that transit has. You know, like if you don't have a carbon tax, you never consider the cost of carbon being released into the atmosphere on the environment. If you become a patron, Reece will be able to afford more water for my parched. Yeah, if you want me to not have to be parched, send me a super chat and I will get myself a smoothie next time. I would love that. What do you think about Toronto trying to bury the part of the Ontario line through Leslieville? Silly. Why would you do that? You have a rail corridor, so you're going to bury rail under a rail corridor for NIMBYs. That does not sound like a good idea to me. Doesn't China have prefab construction methods that significantly reduce construction cost? Yes, maybe, but so does the rest of the world. Overly large stations that take forever to traverse, accessibility being an issue. Yes, no, for sure. So Chinese metro systems are not perfect, but they are quite good. And you should commend them for being quite good, and you should criticize them when they're not, as you should with any system. So annoying. Flips me down again. Why do you think cities are willing to put down large sums of money to construct unproven systems like Hyperloops or Tesla tunnels? I don't think they're willing to. I have only really heard of like one or two examples where they have put money down to do that, so I don't think it's actually a broad problem. I did not know about the West Link in Gothenburg, Sweden, but I would love to learn more about it. Heathrow to London on the Piccadilly line is £6. Yeah, that's crazy. £6 is a lot to ride a metro, right? What makes sense for rural area transportation service? I think maybe some rail that's a place where parking might actually make sense, right? And maybe some rural on-demand transit. I don't think Singapore is great with respect to how the Circle and Downtown lines have a bunch of mistransfers with Downtown line crossing over itself without a station. Yeah, it's not great, for sure. Okay, so to be clear, the statement, not that many people commute to airports, well, that's wrong because a lot of people work at airports, and unless you live at the airport, which I'm sure some aviation fans would love, you have to commute to the airport. Best metro station you've ever been to? I'm not sure what station it is, but I feel like there's one on the Ginza line. Actually, no. It's probably in Japan. Yeah, Japan is great. What can they say? It's a really cool place for transport. Yeah, overall Paris metro prices are way lower. Do you think there will ever be a new Canadian train maker to fill the void? Unlikely. I just became a Patreon. It's a patron. But yes, no. If you did, thank you. I think I can see if I did actually just receive a new patron. Ooh. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you, Nicholas. That's much appreciated. Yeah, join Patreon and you get access to videos early. I do weekly blog posts that are Patreon only. I do calls with my patrons that are kind of like this, except it's a voice call and I'm not responding to questions asked 10 minutes ago. Those are fun. You get a special role on Discord. Yeah, it's cool. It's a cool little community, and when people like want to discuss trans and stuff, it's much easier because there's only a kind of select group of patrons. By the way, if you get a Navigo pass, which is 22 euros per week, you can take any train, metro, tram, bus in the Paris region as much as you want, no matter the zone. 22 euros a week is not expensive. Sure, to and from the airport might be cheaper, but that wasn't really what we were discussing, right? We're discussing on the whole. Will you do a video on transit in Latin America? Yeah, I would. I don't know why I never end up doing it, but I want to. There's a lot of systems I'm interested in. If you're not following me on Twitter, you should, because I've been posting lately a daily, every day I post an elevated rail system, a picture from one. They're not my pictures because I've been to a lot of systems, but I didn't take a lot of great pictures. But today's was Mexico City, line 12. So that's a cool little cool system and a cool line. Ooh, I just realized it's 4:32. Okay, I'll get through the rest of the messages, and then I think the stream will probably come to an end. Navigo is annoying. You have okay. I'm not sure what someone has really got it in for the Fulton Center. Yeah, New York is annoying. I agree. Las Vegas went for Tesla tunnels. Yeah, Las Vegas doesn't have a great reputation for transit. What do you think of VIA using double-deck commuter rail cars to allow for cheaper fares? I don't know that it would, but if it would, sure. Why not? Use some old Go cars. Yeah, sure. Relative to the rest of city, not that many people commute to airports, but it depends, really, right? Like in cities with big airports, a lot of people commute to airports. Like if you have a Heathrow or a Schiphol or an O'Hare in your city, then you're very, very much likely to have a lot of people commuting. Someone sent a super chat. I should take a look at this. Please ride the Oikawa ABT Railway, the last remaining mountain cog railway in Japan. Well, that's very cool. So I actually should do that. Yes. No, it's a great idea, and thank you for the super chat. I want to go back to Japan for sure. Like, it's definitely a place that if someone said, "Here's a plane ticket, you're going to Japan," I would say, "Awesome." But as it turns out, plane tickets don't grow on trees, right? So, the monorail song from The Simpsons, oh my. I liked the stations on the Minato Mirai line in Yokohama. I haven't been onto that line, but it would be cool to check it out. There's a lot of cool ones. Yeah, that is a bit annoying that they charge you that much to use the airport rail line in Sydney, but I think a surcharge of some degree is okay. Is Alstom looking to grow in the U.S. market? Definitely they are. I mean, look, they've already got that order for Chicago for new commuter cars. Opinion on a west extension of Line 2 to Sherway, considering all the development happening around the East Mall and Sherway Gardens? Yeah, it would be a great idea. I mean, it should go all the way to Mississauga, I think, like Mississauga City Center. Toronto's airport transit is non-existent. Well, no, it's not. There's the Up Express, and there's a ton of bus service. There's just not a lot of rail service. Newcastle from Sydney so cheaply. No, yeah, definitely. Okay, let's see. Airport line charge in Sydney is ridiculous. Great. For Reece, somewhere to go in Japan. No, definitely. I do want to go there. Do you think that the Valley Line in Edmonton should be tunneled downtown? Because the train lengths can't be longer than 84 meters due to city block size. The capacity is one half that of the Capital Line. Also because it's not grade separated, right? So, yeah, if it was tunneled downtown, would it be getting built? That's kind of the question you have to ask, right? So, I don't think it... Yeah, I would rather have the Valley Line than not have the Valley Line, so... Technically, everything made on paper grows on trees. That is true. Airport and rail station connections are worth it just for tourists alone, so that people don't have to drive to the city if they're staying downtown and adding extra traffic. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Canadian money grows in ancient organisms that were buried by rock millions of years ago. Nah, we're not that much of a petrodollar. We are a petro and resource dollar, I suppose. Moral of the story, trains in Japan are great and look outlandish compared to the ones we have in the West. Some do. Not all of them, but yeah, they are great. I spent a whole day... It has a Thomas the Tank Engine train. As a kid, I loved that show. I spent a whole day once watching the transit in Hakone, Japan using the romance car. Oh, that's awesome. I think Europe in general, the best place in the world for rail, for metros, to high-speed rail, to interconnectivity. I think Japan's better than Europe. Controversial opinion, maybe, but... Toronto needs a proper air link besides the Up Express, but that's what's cool about the Eglinton Crosstown. Anyways, thank you so much, everyone, for watching the stream today. I really enjoy doing these streams, and I hope you enjoy them too. There'll be another one in 2 weeks. I've already put up a link. I've already put it up, but let me find the link, and I'll share it with people so that if you have a question that you didn't get to ask, or if you're just interested and you want to be informed of the next one, that I can that you can put a reminder on and come see the next stream, because I really enjoy these. They're fun. I get to talk with people, and we get to discuss various systems in various cities. Let me close this. Here's the link. Let me send it over. In the chat, you can go use that link to remind yourself of the next stream. Anyways, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. Oh my goodness, I'm tired. I've got to go sleep, and then I've got to go make more YouTube videos and work. But thanks, everyone, and I will see you in the next one.